Welcome to a fine gaming experience, everyone. It's Bricks here. How you holding up, Ice?
I'm happy. I'm missing my dung beetle, but today I'm a bioluminescent lizard on a tree.
Everyone needs a hobby. We're actually going to go back in time here. We're going to go fight some low-rank creatures. After enjoying the beauty that is our new room.
I mean, it's such a relaxing place, but imagine the life that you live. You need this. You absolutely need this. Did I just watch some sort of lizard creature climb up the outside of your building there?
I have one of those pterodactyl birds that's just flying from pillar to pillar.
Huh.
And the giant scary cactuars.
Everybody has a hobby, like you said. I collect dangerous animals that could kill me when I come home because I just miss it.
I keep them around while I'm sleeping.
Today's a big day. Lots of new things.
Time for a nice new weapon here.
And this is one of my favorite weapons, bar none. I am terrible with it, though. This is the switch axe, not to be confused with the charge blade. Now, the difference between the two is the switch axe starts as an axe and turns into a sword. And the charge blade starts as a sword and shield and turns into an axe. The switch axe actually is a lot more simplistic compared to other weapons. We haven't shown the dual blades yet, but it actually shares a lot in common with that. You have a power-up gauge as you're fighting with it. And once you hit a certain power level, you're able to switch into sword mode. Now, you can actually start off with sword mode, then move to axe mode, but the weapon only has a limited amount of time to actually function while it's in sword mode. But during that time, your damage is up. You're getting an extra effect file. You can see it's got paralysis on it right there. That paralysis file actually triggers and does a consistent amount of damage on top of the normal damage and an additional status effect. But it's one of those switch back and forth weapons. You're actually going to do axe mode into sword mode and axe mode again, backwards and forwards. And it's very simplistic. It sounds complicated, but compared to what we just played with, it is much more simple.
I actually feel it was a nice adjustment going from the previous hard-to-learn weapon to this one. This one was much easier to learn, I found.
And there is something very interesting about this weapon. But we'll get into that in a moment, because we have to see our lovely, boring, but cool-looking alloy sets. If you like classic armor, a lot of the non-monster sets, this is one of the non-monster sets, actually look very much like sort of classic armor from a lot of fantasy games and actual medieval times.
And they're pretty accurate for a lot of ways, too. Like, that'd be a good suit of armor. Not so sure about some of the female sets, but...
Well, this one's actually pretty good. I actually do like the scale molding across the abdomen area. That's pretty good for flexibility and kind of having a bust plate instead of a full chest plate, so you're not walking around like a tin can all day long. There's actually a lot of thought that goes into these armor sets. I believe Capcom has a massive team of people who does lots of research into different styles. They look like a lot of different ethnicities, too. They don't just look for straight-up European armor, but they look for armor from tons of different cultures across the world.
Mm-hmm. Some of the ones we've recently run into in our playthroughs have some very cool themes to them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they've got some, I believe, tied to the Chinese New Year. They've got one that looks really cool. And they've also got another set, which is, it's hard to say, those of you who know what Caravana is, but kind of this Caribbean, almost feathered dress. It's absolutely breathtaking. I don't know how it looks on a male character, but you'll have to wait to see all that stuff.
It's a very Aztec style, but yes, that's much later. And our poofy Lumu set.
Yep. It's gorgeous fur physics.
And the previous one was an interesting set for the defensive skills on it. This one's got a little heart decor going around on it, but it's still pretty good. The skills on it are an interesting mishmash, though.
A lot of the Luma gear actually has that heart theme going, even the weapons.
Divine Blessing is a awesome skill, the Master Mounter. This one's a little bit defensive, but a little energy boosting in the same time, I find.
Yeah, Divine Blessing, for those of you who don't remember, is a chance to trigger whenever you take damage, and it reduces that damage significantly for you.
One thing I've been doing, too, for paying attention is if the secondary skill isn't something you're that interested in, look at how many gems you would get compared to what the rank of gem that skill is. So if you're trading a rank 2 gem skill for a 3 gem slot, it's a pretty good trade.
Early on, you will find for the most part that your gear is actually you're going to want to rely more on the alpha sets because you're not going to have a lot of good gems.
Exactly.
And that's perfectly fine. That's nothing wrong with that. I see you're building a really fun set, one of my favorite looking sets.
This is going to be a mishmash set, though.
And there's a skill on this one, the free element skill. And free element's rather interesting. You'll find some weapons that have an elemental on them, but it's kind of grayed out. And it's grayed out because it's telling you this element exists in the weapon, but there's something that needs to happen to bring it out. And what free element does is each level of it brings out 33%. The last one gives you an extra 1% to round it out to 100, but it gives you 33% of that value. There's some weapons that have some amazing hidden elements on them. Like you'll see almost the same attack power coming out of like fire damage or ice damage, but it also works with things like paralyze and poison.
Something I haven't done in a while here is change my charm, and the armor only gave me 1 skill level of this. And we got a lot of awesome charms now. Some of them, as you can see, have 2 skills on them. But we're going to upgrade it to rank 2, so I'm getting 66%, which gives me 150 paralysis instead of the 210 I could fully bring out in it.
Still good, still a large amount. Now, another thing about this weapon, which I was going to talk about as we're going around picking up many quests, is that the switch axe is missing a defensive component. It actually doesn't have, in the axe mode, it's got normal speed evades. In sword mode, you actually have slow evades, like you were using a great sword or a lance. And it has no special dodges. There are no evasion skills, you can't block with it. It is a very hard weapon to use. So early on, we looked at some Legiana stuff. And the Legiana stuff had an evade skill on it called Evade Extender. That's an extremely useful skill for this weapon because it actually increases the number of invincibility frames you have on your rolls. Because the only defense you've got with this weapon is from your rolling and dodging. And you're only going to get good rolls in dodging in axe mode. So, like I said, I have a lot of trouble with it. As a lance player, clearly, you know I prefer defense over offense.
I've kind of grown to appreciate a good shield use against some of the tougher monsters.
It's good even for emergencies, and to not have it at all is jarring sometimes.
This weapon is kind of odd because it's almost like using the longsword and the greatsword in a pair.
Mm-hmm. Now that's a good comparison, actually. The other thing about it, which is a bit of a problem, is its sharpness. Because it swings fast and it depletes quick.
At least you're not blocking with it and having your defense eaten up that way.
Mm-hmm. That guy's got the worst job.
Picture if he fell in.
Well, there's somebody who can fall in sometimes. And of course they had to do the long shot so you could see our good old handler eating a massive meal while reading.
This has opened up the canteen to the full extent for ingredients. We can now get 6 components for our meals, which is fantastic. If each piece is fresh, we're going to get a huge hit point and stamina boost, and so is our palico. And if I haven't explained it in detail before, each color code has its own skill set. So now that we got 6, we can get the top tier by taking 6 of the green or yellow or whatever color element skills they have up there. And they also added the beverages, which are related to carving and rewards at the end.
And don't sleep on this stuff. Like, it's fine to... Oh, I should point out, he's actually cooking finally.
Mm-hmm. With a good finish.
I don't know what exactly he cooked that you're eating. Maybe that steak thing.
It's one of the gastron tunas you catch in the game that is bigger than you.
Maybe.
It's a jury toad. We're eating jury toad.
We got to do something with the meat. You pull all the scales off. Waste not, want not.
Well, you know, you can't make armor out of the meat, although I'm sure someone has tried.
And one thing I wanted to point out between Bricks and myself is I'm very much a Dark Souls player. I am somebody who plays hard games for the sake of enjoying the difficulty. And I feel like I sometimes don't do my utmost in preparing for a fight because I'll just smash my head against the wall until I get through it. Where Bricks is more of the player who will do things like go in and make a custom meal. I used to just do just throw a meal together for me. Just whip together the best platter you can. And ever since I started doing that, I have noticed an appreciable difference. Like, it's really nice if you're about to fight something that breathes fire on you to not die in one shot from it.
It can be very good for stuff like boosting up specific resistances or making sure you have that feline insurance skill, so if you die, you're not going to lose a death.
Yeah, that is an awesome skill.
Now here we go, taking on the low-rank mated pair, and I want to point out, I have high-rank armor, a good weapon for this, and just watch how easy a time I have.
Well, you're using a brand new weapon too, so good fun.
And the dragon was very annoying for breaking the dam here at the very start. He tricked me a little bit, just because, yep, he'll hit the dam once. And I can see it leaking. But then he'll just fuck around with me for a while. Like, right there. First hit.
He's just messing with you.
Now, while we got the time up here, if you look in the upper left, you can see a little sword icon with a blue bar going across it. And that's basically your charge gauge for your files. You can go into your sword mode anytime, but if you try to do it when your file gauge is below that little arrow in the bar, you'll have to manually reload your weapon. It's very slow, leaves you very open, and only refills the bar enough for you to really change into the sword. It's not a good option. You always want to be switching into the sword via combat.
Always. And there's actually a very specific combo. Oh! Roll, roll, roll.
Almost
Nice.
washed away again.
There's actually a very specific combo called the Wild Swing combo with the Switch Axe where you'll be swinging it and bashing in the head. And if you transform during that, you get a massive combo into the transform. It's kind of like the Big Bang combo with the hammer. You don't really want to just do it any old time. But it is a very good weapon.
Indeed.
There's the Wild Swing. There's the combo.
And the big blast you get from the weapon, which severed the tail. Now, one thing that's neat about this weapon is you'll use your file elements when you're in sword mode, and when you're in axe mode, you'll use your regular element. But that regular element will transfer over to your sword as well. So I think it's about almost 500 paralysis on each swing while in sword mode.
It's not the full amount because it depends on that little additional bit of damage. When you do, however, get your sword ramped up enough that it starts glowing, it is that full amount. Ooh. I was about to say, you gonna dung this one? Yes, you are.
Yep. Now, that's one thing I want to point out with this fight as well. Every time you start one of these things, they tend to give you some helpful stuff in the chest to start. You would have expected that they would have given you flash pods, like they normally do against flying creatures. They give you dung pods for this one.
There's a very good reason. You do not want to be fighting two of these at the same time.
And they prove more than once why you don't want to be fighting both of them at the same time.
And if you watch the sword carefully, you see the glow there that's starting to form on it. The sword is now fully charged up. It's getting its full element bonus, and its damage is highly increased. You gotta get that blue outline around the actual display for the sword. But one thing very interesting about it is what you're doing right there is you don't want to actually continually stay in sword or axe. Always switch before you get below that little line, and it'll constantly refill. And it's a very difficult weapon to master, but there is a popular post on, I believe it was on Reddit, but I can't remember, but somebody talking about how the switch axe is the most ridiculously awesome weapon in the game. And because of that, there's a lot of switch axe players. But I still think it's the hardest thing to play, bar none, just having no defensive options.
You do have rolls, and you have a backwards fade slash you can do. There's a sidestep, which will help you reposition, but yeah, not a lot of defensive options. This is more I don't want to say a berserker weapon, but it's knowing your openings and just wailing as hard as you can while you got them.
It is unfortunately one of those weapons in multiplayer that is frowned upon going all out with, mostly because the broad swings can disrupt your friends. And there are a few explosion attacks, one that you've already shown, that unfortunately can also knock back teammates and blow them into the air. So it is an awesome weapon if you can learn it for multiplayer because you have those people to help you, but it does have disadvantages.
Now they're just sitting right there underneath the giant rock, and I got them both.
Nicely done. I got Rathlos doesn't care.
I tried to switch targets there, and they just weren't having it. This is why it's handy to always have some kind of pod equipped. When you're thrown, you got that second or two you can at least launch it out in defense. You don't have many other options. Even if it's a scatter pod, it might stun them enough to stop the follow-up attack.
Well, you managed to keep Rathalos here. I'm quite surprised. I thought for sure they were going to leave.
I was trying to focus this one down, and that's always a good plan when you're fighting the two creatures, or any two creatures at once.
I will say there's an elephant in the room with this weapon, and I want to mention it. There is a special attack with this weapon, where when you fully charged up your blade in sword mode, you can actually latch onto the weapon, or latch the weapon onto the creature and just attach yourself to them. It does an obscene amount of damage, but if the enemy moves, unfortunately, you will completely get launched off them, just like you had been charged through with a normal attack.
Now, this is something I want to point out as well. I destroyed my shock trap. You almost never want to do that, but this guy was heading all the way back to the nest, and you can only have one shock trap down at a time activated. That trap would have stayed out there in the middle of nowhere and being useless, unless I went all the way back to the other zone. So, when I hit camp there, I grabbed a new one.
Wow.
Yep. Now, watch the map here, too. Because here's the other problem with fighting two guys. I was really hoping this guy would have, swung into the trap or done something dumb and I could have just flash podded him into it. But then Lovey-Dovey came along. Yeah.
Oh no!
Which is, at least it gave me a window.
I'd just like to tell everybody, if you're noticing right now where it says damage taken has been reduced, Divine Blessing has saved Brix's life possibly 5 times in this fight.
And I'm wearing high rank armor. This actually has good fire defense too, so, I'm pretty well matched against these guys, but, yeah, not the easiest fight.
Not at all. But here's the alternate trap, the Pitfall, which is quite good.
Now, there is another creature that I will be showing off fairly soon that likes interrupting fights.
One of our favorites.
Oh, not many people's. But someone was suggesting in the thread that I go around and hunt down the apex creatures for each area. And I've been hunting down some of the lower rank ones, like Great Jagras and Baroth. But Odo is one I'm going to make sure I take down the high rank, because that will unlock a special mission for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now watch Piggy here.
What?
Because he is going to freak out and run away.
I have not seen that before.
I haven't either. Actually, I was really impressed when I was hunting basic creatures, because when I hunted down Tobi Kadachi, there was a moment where he just came up to a pool of water and just started lapping at it. It was really neat just to watch the animal living in the environment, doing its natural thing.
There's a ton of little extra stuff in this game that you do have to stop hitting things for a little while to see.
Mm-hmm.
Roar! Again, because of the lack of any sort of defensive options with this weapon, there is a skill called earplugs that you can get later. I highly recommend picking it up for this weapon as well. It's quite useful because you can attack straight through the enemy's roars, because they don't usually do anything else besides go groar. And yeah, it makes you immune to roar effects, which is very good.
Mm-hmm. It leaves a very nice opening a lot of the times when the opponent is just roaring in your face. The one thing I don't like about this weapon is that it looks very similar between the axe and sword mode, sadly, so it might be hard for viewers to tell the difference between the two moves. I find a lot of the more flashy, spinny moves are the sword ones.
And axe is more big clubbing hits.
Yeah, it's a lot of wide, I don't want to say wild swings, but yeah, there's a lot of basic just grab the end of your axe and wail away.
Wild swing is in the name of the weapon. I think it's fine to say that. One thing which Brix isn't doing, because it's very complicated to do, and you honestly don't want to do it that often, is converting back from sword into axe. It's usually a defensive strategy to do that. Almost always you get a backstep maneuver or a little bit of a sidestep, but it's important to do if you want to keep your gauge full.
Yeah, if you switch between the gauges while you're using it in a combo, it'll give you, I believe it's 16% of the gauge back.
Yeah.
Not a huge amount, but it does add up. And there's a lot of skills that will help you increase your file buildup. There is one I'll be showing off on a armor set at the end here. I kind of wish I could have taken, but I really wanted the Zora set bonus, which will increase my criticals.
Ah, there was a quick back and forth.
Yep, and you were talking about the latch-on hit, and I do that in a second here, actually.
Hopefully you stay on. Oh, I think you just clipped a wing completely.
Well, he's nice and paralyzed, so I saw the opening.
Now this is where you want to do this attack. It's just so cool. The first time you do it, you're going to try to capitalize on it all the time, but resist the temptation, everyone. I promise you, you'll do way more actual damage if you just stay on them and keep just doing combos. But I mean, exploding is cool, right?
That's always fun, if nothing else, and if you're doing a blast element weapon, you literally get to do big explosions, so...
Exploding while exploding.
Well, my weapon is kind of, I heard you like paralysis, so I put your paralysis on your paralysis, so...
So I could paralyze you while I'm paralyzing you?
Yeah.
We shouldn't do that ever again.
I apologize. Please
No,
don't
I mean the
subscribe.
mission. We should never do the mission ever again. Well, that was a hot mess, but you still managed to clear it.
Mm-hmm. Now, just wait till I have to actually do the current version difficulty of those guys.
Just to give everybody an interesting hot tip, there is a cool bunch of missions you can do under the event category where you have to fight every single monster that would appear natively within an area in one mission. Those ones are a lot of fun. Luckily, you get them when you're quite overpowered, so it's not as bad as it sounds. It's more a how fast can you kill it, rather than a can you survive.
I believe in those missions, too, you have a higher chance of fighting larger versions of those creatures.
What the...
It's our Poogie sundress. This is from the summer event where she was wearing her sunglass outfit.
It's the hat that was adorable, sorry.
People were complaining before that I wasn't petting the Poogie every time I saw it, and I needed to show off the outfit too, so...
No, that's a fair complaint. Yeah, the other day, Brix and I had great reason to celebrate as we were playing. We finally beat an encounter. There is a raid boss you can actually fight in the game. It's meant to be 4 teams of 4 online are supposed to take it on in various stages, and we did it, just the 2 of us. It was a pain, and we had to pretty much master the fight and use our best weapons and best gear, but we finally did it.
Looking forward to showing off that one down the line.
I actually really like this set. It looks bug-like, but it still looks like armor. Like, it doesn't just look hilariously comedic.
No, it's definitely giant bug shell armor. It's not, hello, I'm Bug Force Blue.
Plus, this one I actually like the difference. This one's like a full set, where the other one had sort of some open pieces.
And it's got some nice skills on it for paralysis and paralysis resistance, too. Not the best ones, but stuff like Windproof can be very handy against certain enemies, and if I had thrown on paralysis gloves there, oh man.
Yep. That would have been a nice little bonus. But at a certain point, you just get to the point where your paralysis is high enough, you don't need to worry about it.
But that's the thing, is I was kind of debating over my glove choice here for what I actually settled on.
And you can see there, paralysis attack 2 versus paralysis attack 1 between the alpha and beta. That's one of those cases where the beta is almost always going to be outplayed by the alpha, especially if that's what you're picking up the item for. That is such a cool armor.
I love the shoulder plates with the little, I don't want to say pinchers on it, but that's kind of sort of what they look like. They never give you like weird antennae or feelers, but you get cool horns even on the top of your stuff, and like still keeps the bug armor motif.
I'm getting a Master Shredder vibe from the helmet too.
She gets more of the crest to it.
Yeah, I don't know about that one though. I actually think they're actually both stylized after samurai helmets. I'm pretty sure those are very famous styles.
The skills on this set is very unique. There's stuff like the Dung Master that makes it so the Dung Pods are more effective at making opponents run away.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of handy skills there, but you might want to like pick and choose which ones you're using off this.
The legs specifically have some of the best skills you'll get, and you can get them way earlier than most. That's specifically the Dragon Attack, and I believe it also has Handicraft. Handicraft increases it will not increase your sharpness to a new level, but it will increase the amount of sharpness you have in a current level. So right now we've got green weapons. If you put that on there, you'll get more green. It'll take longer to get down to kind of the orange and the brown. Whereas, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. The Effluvial Expert on the body piece is really good, too, for when you're going into the Veil.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the other arm pieces I was debating, because it's got 2 very good skills on the Alpha. I'm glad I showed off the male version, because you can't really see it too well here, but Affinity Sliding, which gives you 30% affinity every time you've done a slide.
Mm-hmm.
And Focus would have helped me build up my file bar a lot quicker.
Anything that has a bar or gauge, it increases the speed at which that gauge fills. I believe it also decreases the amount at which it disappears, too.
So as you can see, the arms were a hard choice to settle on there.
You'll find that a lot. Actually, a lot of the arm pieces in the game require gems, like really rare pickups from monsters. And that's just it's just kind of a thing. Your arm pieces are going to be some of your biggest choices.
Well, I think next time we're going to actually see what all those tracks led us to, and we'll find out what kind of odd dragon we're about to meet.
I'm excited.
Oh man, me too. This is going to be a interesting encounter. So I hope you join me next time, and take care all.